Well, hello, everyone. Welcome to World at War Comics. My next guest is Mr. KJ from Denied Comics. KJ, thank you for stopping by this morning. How you doing?
I'm well. I'm well. Thank you. Thank you for
Good,
having
good. Get dropped off the kids. You got a quiet house. I know how
me.
that goes, man.
Yeah, it's nice for the time being.
Yeah, exactly. Well, KJ, I mean, I would love to kind of jump into Denied, but I thought maybe what would be pretty cool is let's go back and I would love to understand, when did this love for comics start in your life?
Well, okay, so I would consider myself kind of late. I was in the 90s growing up as a child. So the first comic book I experienced that I had was Blade, actually. I was
Nice.
maybe 6 or 7 years old, and my dad took me to see the movie for my birthday, and it scared the life out of me. And on the ride home, he's like, "That's a comic book. That's a comic book." But eventually, before then, I was a big Batman fan. I enjoyed them, even though people talk about these movies so bad. I enjoy all the Shoemaker and the Tim Burton Batman film. I enjoy all of them to Clooney, and then eventually the Spider-Man films came out and the Hulk films. And before then, I never read a comic book
Mhm.
up until my teenage years. And I was like, well, I enjoy the movies, I enjoy the video games. I love the character Blade. So it was during the time that the Civil War, the first Civil War of Marvel was going on, and I picked up a random Civil War book. It was actually Blade versus Wolverine, and the reason why I picked it up is because I like both of those characters. And when I got done reading the book, I turned the final page over, and it was like as if I didn't want to go back into my own world. I was like in this Marvel universe, and from that point on, I was just a collector. After that, it was just a good feeling that I never experienced before. So I would say Blade, from the movie all the way to like the Civil War and that comic book that I read, was just it for me. I like the Spider-Mans, and it was just monsters. I was real big into monsters growing up. Van Helsing. Van Helsing is one of the main reasons, like the Hugh Jackman, the old school Van Helsing, was the one of the main reasons that pushed me over there. I was like, I'm gonna write monsters, and I just loved it.
Yeah, I love it, KJ. And you see that in your comics, man. So we'll get to that in a second. But definitely, man. I mean, who didn't love Blade, man? I mean, that changed
Yeah,
a lot, man.
it did. It did. People don't understand the impact, and a lot of people love the Spider Mans, and they're people my age or people who are fans of Blade are worried about the new Blade movie coming out or what Marvel Studios are going to do with it. But I'm a fan either way. I'm gonna enjoy the whatever they come up with. I'm gonna enjoy it.
Yeah, yeah. It's supposed to be coming out, man. We'll see who's going to play that lead role. It feels like it keeps going all over the
Yeah, it's
place,
kind of
man. So,
it's up in the air. Yeah.
well, cool, man. So then, you read Civil War, you fall in love with the reading of comic books. When did you feel like, man, I have a story that I'd like to tell, and I feel like comic books is a perfect place to do that?
Oh, yeah. So I forgot to mention, growing up, the main reason why I got into comic books and it led into my writing is because I have a learning disability in writing, and I was diagnosed at like 10 years old, and they caught it at a late age, and I was trying to figure out why I couldn't. I'm dyslexic. I had a writing, like the way the doctor or psychiatrist described it was, you have a hard time translating from your mind to paper. And it affected everything, Tommy, from like math, reading, science. I just wasn't getting it. I would get it in my head, but had a hard time translating it to paper. And dyslexia kicked in. So when it came down to comic books, it was like they're mostly pictures. They're mostly, you get the sound effects, and you'll get the pictures and the speech bubbles. And it's so little reading unless you're reading. I read all the way. I managed to read all the way through The Watchmen, which was a lot of reading, but usually it's not. It's speech bubbles, and that's what got me into, like, hey, I could tell a story through sequential art. And I have a writing disability, but it's not going to take me too much writing. And even when I write a script, I let the artist know, like, hey, if you see misspelled words or if anything's written backwards, I have dyslexia. just ignore it. I tell my editor all the time, like he'll message me back and say, "Hey, it was bad this time." And I'm like, "Hey, you know what? You know me, so just you have to kind of disregard." And then it's even more crazy with the letterers, like the people who letter the comic books, because I have to let them know, like, "Hey, I read it. My editor read it. I sent it, to my wife, and she read it. But if you catch anything, I'll pay you a little bit more to like switch it around. So that's what got me to not only reading but writing and telling the story. I'm a creative person, and it's hard to get it out on paper. So a form of dyslexia, a form of writing disability would lead to I could tell a story through sequential art, and that's what it was.
That's cool, man. I'm so happy for you that that outlet exists, right? To where you can
Yeah,
still express what's inside, and you got all the help that you need with your wife and the editor, and so I mean that's
yeah.
awesome, man. That's awesome. Congrats.
Thank you, thank you.
So what was the first title that you came out with, and why was that title the first one?
So the first one I came out with was actually Kyle Flex. I had three characters. I had Kyle Flex, I had Smolderman, and I had Prince Curly. And all of these characters are eventually going to be in Kyle Flex's story. But it wasn't. I would sit down in my mom's basement, like while I was still living with her. Had to be 17, 18 years old, and I would sit there and draw like my own comics because over the years you learn, I had no idea people were paying artists, people who could actually draw to do the comic book work, and then people who actually letter. So I'm struggling, trying to draw, trying to letter and everything. And I finally came out with this one comic book. And my girlfriend at the time was like, "Hey, you should post it. You should post it online." I'm like, "Do people actually do that?" So once I figured out how the comic book industry worked, especially as an independent publisher or an independent person working on comics, then I would post them online, and that is what like opened up the gate for me. But Kyle Flex, he wasn't originally like a monster slayer. He wasn't originally supposed to be anybody that like a superhero type. I had him more of a secret agent, but Van Helsing, like I was just thinking, like I just love the movie so much,
Couldn't help yourself, right, KJ? You just couldn't help yourself.
it was just like, hey, you know what? I love the Hugh Jackman film. I love Blade, and it'd be cool for him to be a monster hunter. And so I kind of pushed it that way. But he was by far my favorite out of the three that I had, and I did a few crossovers with the other two characters, but I kind of pushed him the most because I liked him the most. Yeah.
And how did you come up with Kyle Flex? Is it based off of someone you know, or just someone you created because of Blade and some of the other movies you saw?
Oh man, it was it was we I was we always my friends and I would always have a debate about superheroes just like kids do, and they would always say, like, my brother is a big Batman fan, and he's like, Batman would beat Blade, and we would argue amongst playing Halo and everything. So eventually that led to, let's create our own characters and let's draw our own characters to see what they come up with. So I came up just off of just drawing him, and then it's like give him a name, give him a backstory, and then that was it. So it was kind of on the whim. It wasn't necessarily based off of anybody or based off of anything in particular. I would say that he has a lot of similarities to myself, or if like I see, and it's bad because as a writer you're not supposed to do it, but you push out a lot of what's going on in your life into your work and everything. So it's a lot of similarities that I see. But no, he was supposed to just kind of be there. Like I drew seven different people and gave them several different backstories and different names and everything. It was just on the whim. My sister is the one that was like, I like the name, and she was like, that name is gonna sell. It was one of those things that Jack Reacher, John Wick, one of those names that just kind of
Yeah,
popped. So
rolls off the
I,
tongue nice, right? Kyle
yeah.
Flex. That's cool, man. So in your experience, right, you start you create the character, you have this desire to put it on paper, and then you accomplish it. As you're going through that experience, what were some of the struggles, and then what were some of the things that you felt were a lot easier than you thought?
Okay, so just right off the bat, the struggle was writing with me. It was trying to figure. I never knew beforehand that I had to write a script, and when I learned, like, you're working with another artist, the first artist that I worked with that did the Kyle Flex, the first issue of Kyle Flex that I did, she was like, I need a script. I can't go based off, so that was the first struggle. I had to figure out how to format a script for her and then sit and make sure she understands it. And she did a pretty good job for what it was. I was maybe 24 or 25 years old at the time. And then from that point on, I was the other struggle was just finding people to work with. I didn't realize, you go online, you go on like DeviantArt, you go to Fiverr, you go to Instagram, and there's millions of people who do art, and they'll message you, and you got to find the right one that's in your budget. When you're 25, I'm doing a little bit better in life right now, but when you're 25, 24 years old, and they're like, hey, I charge $150 a page, it's like, I don't have that laying around. So eventually you kind of learn how to budget money, how to budget what you need for what you need done. You learn how to do page by page or whatever it is to fit you. But what helped me a lot was I signed on with a company to learn the ins and outs of comic books. I knew for the most part what I was doing, but they showed me the business side of working with comic books, and I did a few scripts for them and did a few titles for them just to get the ins and outs of it. And I eventually left the company to continue to do Kyle Flex. But it was just it was hard, not only dyslexia, writing disability, but finding money, finding artists, finding an editor, just to get the book out there. And before I met my wife, she was like, well, we were dating, and she was like, your job isn't that hard. And I'm like, it's a struggle. So she sees, she can appreciate, like, when the book actually gets to the printer, she's like, man, you've been working on this for a year now, and it's finally hitting. I'm like, you understand, you get it now. So she's more appreciative. She thought I was just sitting around typing, and then I send it to an artist, and that's it. So I'm glad she can understand the struggle behind, where it comes from, or when I finally she sees how proud I am when a book gets here, and she's like, what's so important, and she doesn't understand the struggle until now, so I can appreciate anybody that does independent work, indie comics. I appreciate it, man, because I understand the struggle that went behind the work. So I'm all for reading them.
That's awesome, man. Yeah. And I've seen some of the videos with your wife, man. She seems like she is right there by your side, making sure that all this gets pushed out, right? That's pretty awesome,
Yes,
man. It's become a
she's
family
supportive.
affair, right?
Yeah, she's supportive. Yes.
That's so cool, man. All right. So you kind of figure it out. Your first comic book that actually, after the school and that gets published, right, is the Kyle Flex, correct?
Yes. So that was the first issue that I was drawing. Like I said, I was drawing them before, but never really published anything. And then as I learned over the years, like, I'll give you a time date. It was maybe from 17 to 25. I just took a break and learned, hey, you need an artist. Hey, you need this. You need to do this. And then around 25 years old, I was like, I'm gonna find an artist. We're gonna do this first book. And then I did it, and I was so proud of it. And then it was like I started looking at other people. I started, and they say, not, my wife gets on my case about this. She's like, run your own race. But I started going on Instagram, and I would run into like Dream Theory, and I would run into Concrete Comics, and I'm like, they're doing what I want to do. And she's like, Rome wasn't built in a day. You gotta,
Yeah,
so,
yeah.
but they're really good. I talk to them online, and they help me out so much.
Yeah.
Newton, no matter where he's at, he could be at New York Comic Con. He's like, do this, go to this publisher, go to this print. And I appreciate the help, because I know they know what they're doing, and I'm still trying to make it to that level. But that was the first title that I did that I was actually proud of. And then I was like, you know what? That felt good. I'm gonna take this. And I'm gonna try and do another one. And it's just taking so long and so much time, but I got the support. I got the support behind me. So.
Yeah, I mean, if you're getting advice from Newton or Derek over at Concrete, you're doing all right, man. Those guys
Oh
are
yeah,
incredible, man.
they're great. They're
A
great.
couple of my favorite publishers, man. I have everything they've ever done, so
Oh yeah, they're great. They're great.
they're really good, man. That's awesome. All right, can you kind of walk through the portfolio of comics that you've already have out there for people to purchase?
Oh yeah, a lot of them are with the company that I worked for in the past, but yeah, right now you can get the first issue of Kyle Flex, which it's considered a one shot now because I'm restarting the series over, you know. So there's going to be eventually two Kyle Flex comic books that say issue number one, and one is just a one shot, and then the other one will be a continued series. I did the Seer issue number 8 for Rise of Sun Comics. That's for sale right now. I did 2 or 3 issues of Old Man Kyle Flex for Rising Sun Comics. They just, I introduced the character to them, and they were like, "Hey, would you consider on making him an old man in the future?" I was like, "Sure, let's go for it." I did 3 issues for them. We did multiple anthologies where they were giving me short stories. They would say, "Hey, write about this is Rising Sun's comics version of Aquaman. Can you do it?" And I would write, little short stories. It's called The Adventures of Unknown. All of these titles can be found on risingsunpublishing.com. And they, like I said, I did the work for them. I get a small percentage from just the effort, but most of the money goes to them. But if you just want to read my work, that's a lot of it from the time that I did the first issue of Kyle Flex up until now. And then in the futuristic, we're shooting for May to get the first issue that I'm working on right now. It'll be the first issue of Kyle Flex in a series.
Nice. And will you crowdfund that like through Kickstarter or something?
Yeah, actually, yeah, we're headed that way right now. I was talking to Newton about it, and who had multiple successful Kickstarters, and he gave me a lot of advice, to not jump the gun because we were about to start the Kickstarter, and he just gave me a list of things like, "Hey, do this, do this, do this, and then run the Kickstarter." But when we do run the Kickstarter, you're gonna get not only the first issue of the series Kyle Flex, you'll get the one shot. You'll also get um, Prince Curly, which is another one shot. So I'm giving away 3 titles and 4 different covers for the new series that's starting.
Nice.
So once we get it launched, then I would definitely post it on Twitter, on Instagram, and everything. But we're headed in that direction right now.
That is so cool, KJ. I'm so happy for you, man. I know it's a lot of work. I know it's a
It
struggle,
is.
especially when you're doing it on your own and you're not going through like a publisher that's gonna kind of help walk you through that. But I'm happy for you, man, because it means more when you do it yourself and you do it the crowdfunding route. And it's pretty
Yeah.
awesome, man. So right now, right as people are kind of waiting for that first issue of Kyle Flex, they should be following you on Denied Comics, and it's with an X. And that's
Yeah.
on Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, all the same, right?
Yeah, well, actually, on Instagram, it's with an X on Instagram only.
Yeah. Oh, okay.
On Twitter, on Facebook, or everywhere else, it's spelled with an S. And the reason being on Instagram is because we had 2 accounts that was Denied Comics and then Denied Comics with an X. And for some reason, the other account, I don't know what happened to it. So we had to rewrite the word in it with an X. So that Instagram would be the only one that's spelled that way. But we're all the same company that whether you run into you're gonna see the same logo everywhere you go. So if don't get confused by the X at all. but yeah, we're all over the place. We're TikTok, Instagram, Facebook, the whole 9 yards, Twitter, everywhere. So yeah,
Nice,
if you
nice.
want to follow there.
Absolutely. Should be following everything that you're doing. You are like as I follow you, I see that you're posting a lot of really great information to get people kind of excited about these titles that are coming. So yeah, to find out more, definitely follow KJ on all these different platforms, man. What else are we missing, man, that you want fans to know?
Yeah, just a little bit of where we come from, the
Yeah,
title of Denied Comics and everything.
that'd be awesome.
I Yeah, I came up with Denied Comics with just constantly being denied by independent, by big name publishers, I should say.
Yeah.
I was 17 and didn't know, the ins and outs of comic books. It's kind of funny thinking back on it, because it was like, I want to work for Image, I want to work for Marvel, I want to work for DC and Dark Horse and everything, and I would do this little bit of work as this 17-year-old kid and then submit it, and then I would hear nothing back. And so I would look at my wife and I'm like, man, I'm getting denied. Like, I'm getting denied left and right. But it wasn't officially denials. It was just like, hey, we're being ignored. You're being ignored. And so finally, I was like, I'm gonna focus in on one publisher, and then I'm gonna see if they take me. And it was the publisher I chose was Image Comics. So I was like, I'm gonna focus in on them. I'm gonna send them. I'm gonna constantly send them work. We just listening to like Todd McFarlane's stories growing up. Like, hey, I submitted X amount of comic books, and then finally I was like, I'm gonna do the same thing, only tone in the Image Comics. And the first time I pitched to them, I got nothing. The second time I pitched them, I got nothing. The third time, though, I got a really nice letter from Eric Larson that was like, hey, I see what you're doing here. It looks good, but it's not the best fit for Image right now, yada, yada, yada. I was like, okay. So I looked at my wife and I was like, I'm wearing them now. So I revised, did another pitch, and then I was like, they're probably not going to say nothing about this next pitch that I'm doing, but it was just fun to do. And then sure enough, they sent me another letter back, and they were like, hey, you're doing really good. Keep it up. But unfortunately, we're not. And so finally, I was like, okay, this is denied. This is denial. This is not, they're not ignoring me. They're actually, reading my work and looking at it, and they're saying, hey, I see what you're doing, but it's just not a fit right now. So it's not, it sounds bad. It sounds like, hey, they're denying you, and you're not good enough. But just listening to war stories from being pitched and stuff, they say no answer is the worst, and a message back is a little bit better, to where, and then the best case scenario is like, hey, we're going to accept your work, and you're good, and then again, after talking to like Newton, after talking to like Concrete Comics, just various people that's in the industry with me, or independent industry with me, they told me, they're like, hey, do it yourself, like that, don't worry, eventually they're gonna come, and they're really the ones, I have to give them a lot of credit, a lot of shouts out, because they're the ones that like push me to like start your Instagram page, start your work, like do it yourself. Another one was Godhood Comics, where they actually reached out to me on, I had no clue who they were. They reached out to me on Twitter, and they were like, do this, do that, and it's so much help coming from left and right. And even though they're considered the competition, or they, you want everybody to buy your book, and then I reached out to Newton. I'm like, hey, I really want to read Crescent City Monsters, and he sends it, without any payment. He just kind of sends it to my address, and I read it. I was like, hey, I'm gonna send this back to you because I want an autograph. And he sends a whole nother autograph. So I have actually 2 copies of the first issue, because he was just nice enough, and it's just really good to meet people like that. Yeah. And I never experienced it in my life. You go to cons, you go to you go to little comic book stores, and you sign, you have your little book there, and you sign in comic books and everything. And the people, the fans, the people you meet, there is just a great community of people. And I just thought, like everywhere you go is, you're going to run into that jerk, or you're going to run into people who aren't going to, you sit outside of the local grocery store and they're selling candy, and then people walk by and they're like, I don't want any candy, or I don't want any Girl Scout cookies at the time. And you kind of go in with that mindset when you're at a comic book convention. But it's like like people who genuinely love anime, they really love comic books, they're going to come up to you, they're going to talk to you. The people in the industry, that's, if you're independent, they're going to support you, so anytime Dream Theory, Godhood, Concrete, anytime they need anything from me, I'm there, because I can appreciate it. It's just so much of a struggle being by myself that I look up to these guys, and it's I came a long way, and a lot of it is because of them. They're like, start off with one, just focus on one and get it out, and this is the way you do it. If you need any question, especially Newton at Dream Fear, no matter where he's at, I'm looking at him like posting pictures from New York or posting pictures from San Diego. I'm like, hey, I know you're busy. I know you're in San Diego right now, but can you help me out with this? And sure enough, no matter where he's at, he's going to help me out. So it's a good feeling to have the support, and that's what really keeps me going for the work that I do. I'm like, I was up at 4 o'clock this morning typing up a script, and then my wife looks at me and she's like, where were you at 4 o'clock this morning? I was like, I was typing up a script, and I was like, I'm not even gonna use it. And she's like, why you defeat yourself? Like, people probably would love it and everything, so it's just a struggle on me. I have to kind of push myself to the finish line when it comes to my work and everything. But
Yeah,
we're
absolutely.
there. Yeah. Another thing is in futuristic, and it's probably gonna come out before my first issue of Kyle Flex. Is my
Okay.
wife is a children's author, and she has multiple children's books out, and
That's cool,
we're
man.
doing Kyle Flex, Itsy Bitsy Kyle Flex this year. So I gave her all the information about my character, and she rhymes in her stories and everything. So she's putting together Itsy Bitsy Kyle Flex, and it's going to be strictly for children, and it's going to be this little fun book that's coming out way before my actual comic book comes out. So look forward to that. I'll be posting it on the Denied Comics Instagram and Twitter and everything.
That is dope, man. Is it going to
Yeah.
be under the Denied Comics branding too, the children's books, or does she have her own brand that she's using?
That's an excellent question. She has her own branding,
Good, good.
but since it's a collaboration, I told her, I was like, you're gonna have to put my logo in there. You're gonna have to just to, because if if a little kid, she writes for early readers. I would say in between first and fifth grade. So if you're in the fifth grade, you're 10 years old, and you pick up Itsy Bitsy Kyle Flex, I need you to become a fan based off of that. Be like, hey, there's a comic book about this guy, so put my logo, put all the tags in there, and so they can merge their way onto to Kyle Flex, who the real character is. But she had fun with that one, and I'm excited for her to do that. She's real well at right. She's a teacher, so she's rhyming and typing and
Yeah.
putting together artwork and everything. So when we get the artwork, which it's in the process right now, I'll start posting pictures and everything of them. And
Nice,
it's gonna
man.
be time. Yeah,
That is so
look
cool,
forward to
man.
it.
So it's definitely a family affair, man. You got two writers in the house then.
Oh yeah, yeah. We're she didn't really write until she saw what I did, and I led her through the process, and I was like, it's a lot of work, but once you do it, you're good. And she has done two now, and she goes to I'll go to Comic Cons, I'll go to Dream Con, I'll go to the Comic Con A-Con, wherever it is around town, and she'll go to her conventions, and she'll say, hey, I sold this many books, and we're kind of in competition with each other, but it's friendly fire. Anything that she makes is what I make, so so yeah, look forward to that. It's gonna be fun, I hope.
Yeah. Do you kind of have an idea of when Kyle Flex comes out? What what will be the first con that you do? Have you already
um
like looked at the calendar and kind of figured out like, hey, I want to time it around this time so I can hit this con? Because Dallas has a big one, Austin has a
yeah
big one. I mean, there's
yeah
some pretty awesome ones in Texas.
So we are most definitely okay. So what we're shooting for, what we already have planned out, is to do DreamCon, which is in Austin. We are planning to do A-Con, which would be Anime Con, right here in Dallas. I live in Arlington, so I'm not that far away from any of them. And the big one in Dallas, we're planning on going to that. But the main one, if I can't make all of them, I would definitely be at DreamCon. I would definitely be at Anime Con around the area. We're gonna try and branch out. We're gonna try and go to Philadelphia this year, where the Glyph Awards are being held. I'm planning on getting a table out there. So if I'm don't quote me, don't put it on record, but we're we're trying to do that one. But you can definitely quote me on Acon, and you can definitely quote me on DreamCon. We already planned it out since last year to go there this year. So the Kickstarter should be running. Hopefully May, we should launch the Kickstarter. It shouldn't last that long, and then the book would be out. And of course, it's going to take some. Newton already let me know. He's like, hey, make sure that you put out a good enough time to make sure you ship the book out to everybody. Hopefully everybody gets their book before DreamCon, before AnimeCon. So when you see me there, I'll have it all ready for you. So DreamCon, look out for DreamCon. That's
Nice.
where we're headed. Right?
Yeah, when you head to Philly, that's where Derek is, the owner of Concrete. So
yeah, he let me know because when I won the Glyph Award, I was like, hey, are you going? And he was like, sure. And I was like, well, what makes you so sure? He's like, I'm up here. I'm already here. So I was like, oh, okay, of course you're gonna be there. So
exactly. Yeah.
Unfortunately I couldn't make it that year. And the year that I won, and I had no clue that I won. It was kind of one of those things where I just submitted it in and was like, if I win, then I win, and then they messaged me, the Glyph Awards messaged me while I was at work, and I was like, I'm not gonna make, that's a flight, that's a trip, but you can send me the award, so eventually they sent it in and everything. But if I had known that I had any type of chance of winning, I would have took the trip out there. So I'll know next time. Win, lose, draw, I'm gonna head out there just to be there, just to have a good time,
That's cool, man. That's cool. Well, Mr. KJ, man, I can't tell you how much I appreciate meeting you. I cannot wait for this Kyle Flex to come out. I promise you I will be one of the first ones on that Kickstarter purchasing that. But man, congratulations. I'm so happy to actually have met you. Anytime you want to come back on, especially as you get closer to that Kickstarter, let's help you push that out and get that out to as many people as possible to ensure that you have a successful campaign, man.
All right. Thank you. Thank you so much, Tommy. I really, really appreciate it.
Yeah, absolutely. Anytime, my friend. And let's stay in touch, okay?
Oh, will do. Will do.
All right, man. Well, appreciate it, everybody. I'll throw the links for all of the different social media to make sure that you know where to find KJ and to follow his work, especially as he leads up to this Kickstarter. But KJ, have a great rest of the week, and everybody, we'll talk soon.